program Inside Today on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodu, and I deeply apologize for starting 5 minutes behind schedule due to some technical issues beyond our control. But glad to know you're still there. You're going to be part of the Inside Today as we look at a very interesting issue concerning people living with disability. And we're looking at protection of the people living with disability. Over 35 million people are said to be living with disability in Africa's biggest black nation, Nigeria. And the 2023 commemoration of the International Day, which is held every 3rd December, was celebrated in grand style as the president did sign into law the parts that Nigeria did enter, and also 10% of every intervention that goes to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation would be going to that particular vulnerable group, which makes it very important. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, in the person of Betta Edu, did make a commitment to say that the government, the present government, would ensure and see how this is domesticated in all 36 states of the Federation to ensure that the 35 million Nigerians living with disability would get the required protection. And the big one is the fact that the president did announce that going forward in 2024, any building or facility that does not have accessibility for persons living with disability would be shut down. So those are some of the sweeping changes, policies, and we hope would help the people living with disability in the country. As it's customary in-house, we get the finest minds in the African continent to get you well informed as regards very salient issues. On today's edition, it's no different. We've got the Director General of a Nigerian Women Economic Development Project, who their sole aim is to empower African women, grassroots, sub-grassroots, even at the urban areas, to empower them economically so that they can provide for their family, their children, and the nation at large. We've got the Director General in person live here. His name, Lugard Okonobo, is in the live studios with us to help us look at this very interesting talking point. Nice to have you in the studios.
Nice to have you, my brother.
All right, let's look at the issue of Nigerians. Over 35 million Nigerians living with disability. I know you had a program with Seed Foundation recently where some milestones were reached in terms of empowering some women living with disability. How would you say the effort has been thus this far, looking at the journey to this point?
Well, it's a very good topic to discuss about because we are talking of women with disabilities. We are talking of persons with disabilities. So I beg, for the purpose of this presentation, we look at it holistically. Persons with disabilities. For us at NIGWET Project, we focus on women, and we also look at women with disabilities. What I want to say, it's been a very good journey all through, and it's good that a new government in place under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is taking the bull by the horn to move a step further in implementing the act that was signed by the former President Muhammadu Buhari. President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Disability Act, and that gave birth to the commission, which is the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. And we are already getting closer to wind down, to check the first 3 years of having signed that bill into act, what has happened so far. And I think one of the core areas we should begin to look at is walkways, accessibility for persons with disability. And I think I must commend Mr. President that is a step in the right direction. Going forward, the issue of 10% of budgetary allocation is one good thing. People will always say government is good it's easy, it's cheap to speak. But after speaking, putting it into real action also matters.
Okay, that brings me to my next question, which actually was a question. Talk is cheap, like they say.
Yes.
The federal government has said they're going to shut down any building, any public building without accessibility for persons living with disability. How realistic, how honest is this comment by the president, this administration, knowing fully well how Nigeria is in terms of issues when it comes to say one thing and speaking with two sides of the mouth, so to say?
Well, I would say it is possible, but I will
political
advise,
will.
Yes, I will advise government in this case that we have to be very diplomatic about it, because they say Rome was not built in a day. It's already a challenge that some of the structures in questions that are already existing, they were already existing before the act. So pulling down a structure because you don't have that kind of accessibility, shutting it down, yeah. I would suggest that it's not really just a decision in the right direction. But I think what we need to begin to do at this point in time is that we need to do a lot of sensitization and awareness. Because if you sensitize the Nigerian public of the adverse challenges that these people who are already challenged are going through, then they begin to see the reason why they should have it. You need to also be able to advocate to them that these persons that are disabled, they can actually contribute to the national economy. That disabilities affecting someone does not stop the person from contributing to the national GDP. And so when you present your card before the Nigerian public, I think they begin to see the reasons why it is very possible to begin to swiftly begin to do these things. Because the truth remains that someone may be able today and just in few hours is already disabled.
Sure.
You saw the case of Mr. Embu. 3 years ago, it wasn't like that. But today, it's already amputated. And I can tell you, it can never be so swift the way it used to walk. And that is what disability is all about. Disability is not until when the person is blind. It comes in different form. And so what we need to begin to do is to advocate. Because what you fail to advocate and sensitize the Nigerian public today may also affect your children or your brother or your sister tomorrow.
Okay, let's look at, in terms of sensitization, how big is the work before the commission, this commission of people living with disability? Yes, they've struggled to get this, they've got it, but how big is it in terms of looking at the data? When we talk about data now, because now, if you want to get the data of how many Nigerians are disabled, the data is not so certain. At times you see some narratives say under 3 million or over 35 million. And how can we begin to get, collation of data as regards the true number of people that are disabled, their location, and probably that would help the commission?
Yeah, well, I'm aware. I was part of the Cedar Seed Foundation program, and when the press briefing was made by Ambassador Dr. Lois Autar,
yes.
When she mentioned that 35 million Nigerians are disabled. Well, we have so many statistics, but the fact remains that we need to justify those statistics. What are the sources of the data? Where are the primary data, secondary data? What are the justification? What are the source of these informations that are collated to get this data? Were they collated by just an NGO? Was they collated based on reports from different states? I remember a very case of a state that, because they saw that the volume of dollars and nairas that were coming for HIV victims, and the state decided to inflate the number of patients that, their citizens that have HIV, because they were expecting donations. And when suddenly the donations wasn't forthcoming, suddenly the number fell. And I think when they begin to get backlash of that the state was not doing well and all that, and before you know, they begin to adjust. So I think at this point in time, we need to have a correlation with the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. We need to get the Federal Ministry of Health. We need to look what are the baseline studies that were done to justify those data. Disability comes in different forms. Is it through victims of polio? Is it by sight? Is it amputations? Or is it crippled? So what are the levels of, what are the degrees of these disabilities? How were those data collated across state, across local government? Who were those that validated the document? Because when you give a data, you need to validate that data. And so I think on that note, I may not be able to be in the right position to talk more on the 35 million or sometimes 3 million, sometimes 10 million.
Tentative.
But for me, I would say that looking at the UN report, as we always fall back to the UN report, we have that almost 35 million, almost 35 million Nigerians are disabled, but in different degree of disabilities.
All right, let's look at the issue of domestication of this act and signed by Mr. President. How worrisome is it that, yes, the President might have signed it and to the convention, and so technically has agreed that Nigeria would go according to what the international law says. Are you concerned that not every state has domesticated it, and what's the guarantee that we're going to get corporations from state governments?
Well, as I said earlier, that brings us to the issue of awareness, sensitization.
Okay.
The public needs to be aware. They need to know that, just like I said, that these citizens can actually contribute. And I gave a case of Mr. Umbu. He was contributing very well to the GDP through Nollywood. But just of recent, we heard that his leg is being amputated. And so, whether we like it or not, he's already having what I call a slight disability.
Yes.
And that will affect his motion, affect his movement, affect the speed of the way he does his things and all that. Well, he's already an actor, so he can also be used. He can convert that. Yes, he can use that. That condition he is. He can convert it. So I think what we need to begin to do at this point in time is that while we advocate for persons with disability, we also need to begin to let the Nigerian public know that, look, that these disabled people, they are disabled to contribute to national economy. I don't know whether you get the syntax that I just explained. Disability,
yes,
but they are disabled. So I kind of break the word disabled into two. So you call it disabled people.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can as well say disabled people. One word. But you can break it to say disabled people. So when that's part of the awareness, because when you begin to tell this person, say, look, oh, you are like this. Oh, no. I met a young lady who said, well, that I'm on wheelchair, and so what? That's the space that she finds herself, that she can do some other things. So we need to create that awareness, create that sensitization. And I think with that, state government and local government begins to key in. Because when people see the benefit that is derived from anything, sincerely speaking, it's about value addition. So sensitization and advocacy will give us an opportunity to have value addition for persons with disability. And once you have that, sincerely speaking, these people will contribute. And every state will begin to key in terms of signing it into law.
All right, let's look at the issue of discrimination, which is a very strong factor. The Nigerian law discriminates against people who discriminate against people living with disability. How would you assess the acceptance? People with disability, how have they been treated? From statistics we've gotten, do you think they've been treated fairly, especially even the state government in terms of employment opportunities and other, necessities? Yeah,
we are a growing economy. We are developing economy. So I'm not surprised that we have such a differentiation. I'm not also surprised that we have issues of discrimination, but I think we have not really fared well when it comes to the issue of discrimination. And this is the more reason why we begin to engage with persons with disability. We need engagement with them. We need to empower them. We need to enlighten the public. We need to also create that capacity for them. And by so doing, I can tell you that these persons will begin to contribute effectively, not just to the society, but also to themselves.
Okay, looking at it's been said that Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development was meant to submit progress reports as of 2013, but as of then, report written says no report had been submitted by then. So can we say this progress is a sudden progress that has come? Because before now, reports were not getting back to the Ministry of Women Affairs, and so the people living with disability have been in the dark. What is causing this sudden change?
Well, I may not totally agree with you,
okay,
because 2013, I was still in the presidency then.
Okay.
But I know in 2014, my working with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, then used to be Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, there was an active department that was handling cases of persons with disabilities. And I remember very well, that was the Department of Rehabilitation.
Okay.
And it was headed by a director who is also having eyesight issues. So he, eye impediments. And so she did fantastic well. So when you talk of report presentation, report will come in different ways. Is it reports to the UN system? Is it reports to the Nigerian public? But let me let you know that the conversation that leads to the passage of the bill, now act, the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs contributed heavily. But at the beginning of the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, we had Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. But midway, we now had Humanitarian Ministry that carried over the persons with disabilities, which is the social development section of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, which is now domiciled in the Ministry of Humanitarian, now Federal Ministry of Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation. So there are data, but data for what? What kind of data? I think that may be the next information I may seek to hear from you so that I can be able to give you a balanced
Okay, let's look at the commission now. For you, what should be the immediate task of the commission in terms of for them to succeed? Do you think they should have a roadmap as to what they should achieve in the next 5 years? Because the burden on them is to establish something that can be built upon. Yeah. How big is this task for those in the helm of affairs?
Yeah, the National Commission for Persons with Disability, I can tell you right now, they are on the right track. From the time the Act came into place, the Commission followed, and there have been a series of activities, there have been a series of engagement, and I can tell you one of the dividends of the Commission today is that we now have a lot of persons with disabilities now serving as special assistants or special advisor or senior special assistants to executive governors, even as far as local government. We now have essays to local government chairmen on persons with disabilities. So that, for once, has changed the narrative to begin to address issues for persons with disabilities. What it means now is that they have someone in-house who is interfacing with government constantly and not communicating back to them. And I think that's one way a lot of things have begun to shape it. Now, on the legislative side, where that's worked on the document, the bill, before being transmitted to either the governor or the president, in this case the president, before they sign into act, and also at the state level. We begin to see a lot of states already signing on because speakers of House of Assemblies are now having also essays and PAs and SSAs to their office on persons with disabilities. So that is one area that the commission has fared very, very well. Now, as a commission, other activities like data gathering, mining, advocacy, sensitization, negotiations, attending to international fora has now increased. Unlike before, where it was just a department. When it was a department, I'm sure you understand the bureaucracy that comes to federal ministries, yes, where a director will even at the department level, you now have a deputy director reporting to director to PAMSEC to minister before that. But right now, the commission is standing. And the commission knows that the mandate of it is to ensure that he advocates, he creates awareness, he develops programs, he negotiates, and all what have you. All these are now being put together. So that makes it a fast-track process for solving problems and challenges that are affecting persons with disabilities. To me, that's a very great feat.
Okay, let's look at in terms of empowering people, especially looking at your own project now, Nigerian Women Economic Development. How would you say it has been? How challenging has it been truly empowering Nigerian women economically? And what's the source of funding now? What level of Nigerian women benefit from your project?
Well, in brief, the NIGWET project, the Nigerian Women Economic Development Project, is a collaborative initiative between SEED Cooperative and the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs.
Okay.
It seeks to address and target 1 million women over a 6 years period, 3 years of 2 cycles, and 2 years of pilot. So we've been on the pilot 2022, 2023. And I can tell you sincerely, it has been very heartwarming having the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs dedicated, committed to the cause of the economic empowerment of women. As you know, the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs has just one agency, okay, which is the National Center for Women Development, now renamed the Mariam Babangida National Center for Women Development. The ministries ever since have just been social. But now with looking at international funding and challenges, the ministries and department agencies are now beginning to migrate to social enterprise. Even NGOs, faith-based organizations, are migrating to social enterprise so that they can sustain themselves.
Wouldn't this be in conflict with what the original plan of these NGOs or faith organizations?
No. You see,
because it means they are looking at profit making now. They become profit making.
No, change is dynamic. Now, I give you an instance. You are running a private enterprise here. So if anybody wants to come, he wants to do business. But in social enterprise, you look at the impact. You look at the lives that want to be affected. And when you affect that life, the life of that person automatically has a ripple effect on the economy. And I give you an instance of where we talk of social enterprise. We got one of the facilities from the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. And we had a place there that you can store grains. And instead of women going to store somewhere for, let's say, 50,000 naira, with that facility, you have a shared responsibility, and as low as 10,000 naira, which is good. So the purpose is to ensure that the women is supported, not just for profit making. You can as well share 50,000, some of them will pay. You will still render the same service. So we have a case where we have a mini studio and we say, oh, women are not having access to have publicity and media. Okay, we can use this to support them. We have a case where a partner partnered with us and said, okay, he's ready to design website for free so that they have global visibility, but then they need to pay little charges for management fee, which is you supply content, we upload, we manage for your site for you over a space of 1 year, just at the rate of 10,000 naira. So that is a social enterprise. You are supporting that process. So it's not really running contrary to the modus operandi of the agency. But social enterprise allows you to sustain, because whether you will like it or not, there are operational costs, there are recurrent expenditures. So in social enterprise, you look at how do you take care of your operational costs so that you remain afloat while delivering the objectives of the establishment or the initiative that you have designed. So that NIGWED is graciously doing. By extension, for women with disabilities, as part of your question, we begin to look at how do we support them. But we'll find out that supporting women with disabilities is like 3 times a normal person, because the challenges that they go through is also high. And but looking at the present economic reality, we begin to see that it's even getting more complex for persons with disabilities. Sometimes I just sit down and I feel like, if normal human being is complaining, looking at the way things, the increase in cost of fuel, the cost of goods and services has been, how are these people surviving? And I want to give you an assignment, Momodu. It's good to even interact with them, to even hear from them. I think I will also advise that you have one of them on your set here, so that you hear from them what they're actually passing through.
We've been interacting
with respect to the current economic reality. So for us, we started by just providing them with sanitary pads, because the cost of sanitary pad is on the increase. And so we decided, okay, look, why not empower them? But we'll get a sewing machine, train one of them, or train 2, that will teach others and give them some sample materials which they can now produce and be able to have reusable sanitary pad. Someone say, what is reusable? Why not give them other better things? Well, this is what we can afford for now, but gradually we can migrate as we get more donations. And I believe if we do that, another person do others, together we all achieve swiftly.
All right, in case you're just joining us, you're watching Insight today on Global Television, and we'll be looking at protecting people living with disability. And we've got the Director General of Nigerian Women Economic Development Project, the person of Lugard Okonobo, talking to us and helping us look at how important it is for the people living with disability to contribute their own quota towards national development. We'll go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, the program continues. Stay with us. Right, welcome back from the break. You're watching Insight today on Global Television, and we're putting our searchlight into the very interesting issue. Protecting people living with disabilities. Being said that over 35 million Nigerians are living with disability, according to data and according to what the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, did inform the press when speaking to the press. All right, we still have in the studio with us Lugard Okonobo, who is the DG, Nigerian Women Economic Development Project, aimed at empowering Nigerian women. All right, Okonobo, let's look at in terms of violence against people living with disability. We've heard a lot about gender-based violence. But in terms of people living with disability, how more serious is this crime of violence against people living with disability?
This is one topic I would like to speak on, because violence against persons with disability is still on the increase. The violence comes in different forms. We have women that are being abused. We have women with disabilities that have been abused.
Do we have men also abused? Because most times when we talk about abuse, people tend to always focus on one gender. Is that a fair analysis?
Well, it's not a fair analysis in a way, but if we are talking of gender-based violence, so gender-based violence is cross-cutting. It involves both the men and also involves the women.
Okay.
So in the case of persons with disabilities, the violence against persons with disabilities is cross-cutting. So you have it affecting both the men, you have it affecting both the women. But the fact remains that it's on the increase. You can see the level of societal decadence that is on.
Okay.
You see a lot of violence in our society. You see issues, different form of crimes. Just this morning, I was watching on the social media, and I saw a young man burying the mother, because they said if he does that alive, bury the mother alive, that's part of the ritual for him to get quick money. I can tell you a lot of persons with disabilities are going through this. And I can also tell you that the high rate of sexual and gender-based violence that is being perpetrated affecting persons with disability, my brother, is mind-blowing. We have women that are being raped, persons with disability that are blind that are being raped, that they don't know where to go to. How do you imagine even a young lady that is being raped? They say, point to the person, you go, no. But this is somebody that is blind. Maybe he wants to use a voice recorder, or he wants to use the hand or whatsoever that he'll be able to detect the person. But I want to tell you that the violence against persons with disabilities is on the increase. And that needs to be stemmed.
Do you have statistics to prove which part of the 6 geopolitical zones where they seem to be more prevalent?
Well, in my view, I won't really say that based on my working across the 6 geopolitical zone.
That's what I'm asking.
I would say it's more in the north. It's more in the northern part than in the southern part.
Why is that?
Yeah, well, I think in the southern part, a lot of persons that are disabled already have 1 or 2 things that they can do. They've been supported. But if you look at the poverty level and the issues of economic hardship, it's more in the north. And that also translates. Now, just last month, I never knew I was even going to be called for this program. Prior to the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, I had an opportunity to stop at a junction. I just watched from afar.
That's where is that? Where did this occur?
Yeah, that was just at by ShopRite. And because it's a busy Sunday.
Which area is that?
Yeah, ShopRite along Airport Road.
Okay.
And so you see a lot of persons with disabilities coming there to come and beg for us, for arms and all that. And I could see someone who sat down. For almost 30 minutes, people were passing through. Nobody even cared to even say, take a little gift or so. So, and I began to ask, and I asked the person standing by, I said, can you see what I'm saying? He said, bros, now so the country don't be. Everybody, the whole side now, the thing is really tough. And I felt pain, because that's to tell you that on a normal day, you see such person begging, you think he has made so much money, but the current economic reality has not really provided that. And so, the same goes with the violence. And when you see, because people are already angry in this present dispensation that we are, such anger is being transmitted to these persons in different forms. People are already, the environment is tensed. And so you just imagine sometimes you stop a vehicle and you tell the driver from Lugbe to, Federal Secretary, maybe 400 naira, and the person I beg 300 naira. And if you know the driver will just, date this country, you don't see the cost of fuel. That's the same thing that the persons with disabilities are going through. And so that's part of a violence. Insult is there, assault is there, sexual abuse is also there. So all these are running concurrently. And I think that is the more reason why the National Commission for Persons with Disability will need to step up its game on addressing the violence against persons with disabilities, so that even the police, the DSS, the armies, and all the security agencies be co-opted. And they should be able to have something like a situation room. Well,
that's what I wanted to go.
Yeah.
How would you assess the response, the quick response of the security agencies, the health, paramedics, and when it comes to violence against people living with disability? For normal people, yes, at times it takes forever for them to respond. But do you think the people living with disability get more sympathy and get this response from the medical outfit or security agencies?
Well, they get the response, but again, the response is not as you expect.
Not swift.
Not swift. Just take a case of Federal Medical Center, for instance. I had a case where my younger sister was sick. We went there, and you can imagine the stress someone goes through just to be able to get even paracetamol, because you have to first of all go to where the doctor administer the counseling, and then after minuting, you put the file there. Another person picks the file and say, "Oh, doctor has already checked you. I haven't interrogated you. Okay, you now move to dispensary." You get to the dispensary, they tell you to go and pay there. All these are different offices scattered. And I can tell you, on such occasion, there wasn't such accessibility. What would somebody that has disability passes through to be able to do just a payment? And just that exercise took us to about 4 different offices, because you go to one office to stamp, you have to pay one, you have to do one remitter somewhere. All these are challenges that normal human being, even a sick patient, passes through that. Is already passing out. But yeah, we have persons with disability. Do we have a special space for them to take care of them? And that brings me to the issue why we now need to have a situation room and have, even if possible, a special dialing code. Just like you have the 911 in the US. We should have a special code that persons with disability should be able to call for rescue, for support, for assistance. And I think that way it will help to fast-track assistances for them and get some of these security agencies also hooked up to that network.
All right. In terms of, let's look at now employment for people living with disability. Would you say employment rate? Yes, you talked about them being special aids, and those are political appointments. We're talking about even when you had to do with the facility, the buildings, government was specific on public buildings. What about private sector buildings, the private sector? Do you think the private sector has embraced this, this protection for people living with disability?
The private sector is still far from it, but it's good. The government that signed the act is already starting first. So it's like
leading by example.
Lead by example. If you want to be a good leader, you look at the followers that are following you, and so you show example. What you have signed, implement it. And when you implement it, you cannot be able to point to them that I've done it, it's working for me, it's real. There may be challenges, but you can actually get to your destination. And so they will also follow. So the private sector still very, very far from getting such accessibility. Above that, we also look at the issue of funding. Funding is key to getting some of these things done, I must tell you. Imagine in some high-rise buildings before now, they never had lifts. But if you have a lift system in this your structure, the person is able to use the accessible routes to come in. Immediately he gets into the lift, he can move up. Okay. Yeah, but what of buildings that never had lift before now? And I can tell you quite a number of them at the state don't have. We only have most of those buildings around in the city centers that have. Even in state capitals, how many buildings have lift?
Okay, let's look at in terms of, you talked about funding, which is very key. There's this accusation that civil society organizations, organizations that support people living with disability use these people to front and get huge foreign support, and that's what instigates you and your colleagues to support these people. How true is it? How much support do you get from foreign organizations and countries, and how well do you actually, account for these monies?
Well, the first thing I need to say, you may not be totally correct when you talk of accusation, because you see, as I said earlier, persons with disabilities could be your brother, it could be your sister, it could be anybody. And I'll give you a very close scenario.
Why I'm saying this also is because Lois Auta, for a long time, I knew when she started this crusade.
Yes.
I saw the wheelchair she was using.
Yes.
Later on, the wheelchair transformed to a better one, a more sophisticated wheelchair. At a point, it was even hard to have access to her. Before you talk to her, you see 2-3 people playing aids to her. And, so it's like, okay, now the monies are coming in. She becomes inaccessible, and she's holding conferences at technical places, and so we begin to wonder, okay, is this when these funds begin to come now, suddenly life changes?
Well, so I can't hold brief for her, because she's...
But you agree with that journey?
She's executive director of Cedar Seed Foundation.
Yes.
Our organization is different, but we are partners. We have limitation to what we are partnering on. We support.
Okay, when it comes to the finances, you guys are no longer partners?
We provide technical support, because that's what we promised the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, to support women across board. Whether you're a professional woman, whether you're a growing young woman, girls, women with disabilities, women in agriculture, women across field, we support them.
Okay.
So for that support, we do. But in terms of accountability, the influence and whatever, that is the duty of Cedar Seed Foundation to speak. So Hiji will be in the right position. But I want to say here, there's a level of activities that you do, definitely you enjoy the goodwill. I wouldn't really know, but I know at the time, one of the wheelchairs, the motorized wheelchair that she was using, was having the name of the organization that supported that provider.
Okay.
So that was a brand, because the organization felt, as she begins to use this wheelchair to go to different places, supported, provided by this organization. That's a brand to them.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know the one that
is,
she's using currently.
If that's
but in terms of you, in terms of you saying, doing events in highbrow places and all that, development partners, they sometimes give you conditions on what you do.
Okay.
So we have a couple of development partners that we work with, and they will tell you they have standards. And those standards must be kept, must be adhered to.
Okay.
So you won't say because they give you these funds, you feel that no. But that's not to hold brief, to say that we don't have some organizations who are using persons with disability to get money. Definitely we have Judas all over everywhere. But in the midst of having these Judas, I tell you sincerely, my brother, there are those who are sincere, who are committed to the cause, and they are doing just the right thing. And I think Lois Auta remains one of such figures doing that. If you look at the mobilization of CSOs that have coalited with Cedar Seed Foundation, it's amazing.
What is inspiring this? Is it the...
Yes, because of transparency and accountability.
Okay.
Yes, transparency and accountability. They've been moved. They've been carried along. Just recently now, you talked about the Disability Inclusion Funds that is being raised during the last event. And funds have been, if you look at the level of participations, the personalities that grace that occasion, it will tell that everybody is aligning with someone who is doing the right thing. The fact remains that we're in a social media space where any information you do goes in the...
All right, so let's look at the journey so far has been fantastic, but the big question which lots of watchers of what is playing out is the fact that those in the rural areas have not been carried along. Most of these activities is always at the urban areas. We've never really seen now, Lois Auta, for example, since she's the person we're using now, go down to the rural areas, the suburb, and help people actually, suffering. We at the beggar roundabout, there are certain people living with disability. We see them crawl on their. We've never seen. Okay, why is there no extending hands of fellowship to this set of people?
I must tell you,
is it for the elite only?
No. There are lots of extensions being done. The last event, we had representatives. Well, number one, I think the first thing is the funding. Because as I explained to you, if you have a person with disability, you want him to come from somewhere, you definitely be paying almost ×3 the normal cost you will pay for somebody that is normal.
Okay.
And that alone is a huge cost.
Is that not the reason why the funding is coming from the, foreign countries?
When you say foreign countries, you have to be exact. Which organizations?
From US, from UK, anywhere, as long as it's outside the shores of Nigeria, that's a foreign direct support. Is that not the reason why they're giving that money?
The next question, to what volume is it and for what purpose?
Okay.
Those are the things you look at. Mr. A cannot give you money to do bags or school bags and school kits for children and you divert it to someone else. No. Because every donor that wants to support has a purpose why he's giving.
Okay.
Yeah. But I understand. Now, don't take the fact out that Lois Alta is just one individual who has come up with organization to support persons with disabilities. We have several others. So it's a game of everybody coming together, plays our role to see what he or she will contribute to the entire pool to affect the lives of persons with disabilities.
Okay, your final take as for your expectations for 2024, especially with government order now that in 2024 buildings will be shut down if they don't have accessibility for people living with disability and all that. And also they said there's going to be a monitoring team that will be constituted. For you as a stakeholder, what do you expect to be in that committee that will be constituted? What group of persons do you expect to make that constitution? Because that committee at a point will become strategic because they will be going to buildings and buildings will try to influence them. And we know in Nigeria, when you're in that committee, you'll be called upon in secrets to talk to your people. I hope this won't turn to another money-making adventure, the committee now.
I doubt that completely because you see, the issue of accessibility, which we are talking about, is an issue that is tangible. And
can be seen.
Yes, and it's not something that very expensive. I must tell you, walkways, it's not about, what is it? You create a platform that makes it easily accessible. And again, it also will involve negotiations. So on the aspect of you talked about the persons that will be in that committee. We should have people who can negotiate because it's about negotiation. Yes, the person built his or her building before now when there was no act, and now you have put the act and you want it overnight. It's not just overnight. You have to negotiate. You have to dialogue. You have to explain to the person. So we need people who can negotiate. We need people who can be able to advocate constructively.
Okay.
We don't need people who are political activists that want to come and get political gain. We should be careful, and I'm saying it here, that the government needs to be very selective of persons that they will bring, not people that will come and do political vendetta to attack political opponent and say, oh, because this person belongs to other political party, let's bring down his building. We should be careful about that. Yes, the person may have the right to belong to any political party, but on this issue, it should involve negotiation, diplomacy, dialogue. That way we cannot get it right. Or else, the reprisal effect may not be too good for our society. Tomorrow, another political party may come in. What do you expect? This time around, they will not even come to even visit. They will just come and, because it's already marked, from marking, they just come and demolish. And that will not be too good for our society.
All right, so that's how we're going to call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, Insight today. And definitely it was a very deep insight as regards protection of people living with disability in Nigeria. Statistics, according to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, about 35 million Nigerians are living with disability. And one man who is a stakeholder in this regard is no other person but the Director General of the Nigerian Women Economic Development Project. He is Lugard Okonobo, who has been talking to us as regards the gains of sensitization of Nigerians, especially as 2024 holds a very, very tall order for the Commission of People Living with Disability and the Nigerian public. Okonobo, it's always a pleasure having you in the studio, and thank you very much for your contribution towards empowering Nigerian women, especially people living with disability.
It's my pleasure, and I want to also appreciate you, station, to give that media support, because it's very key to effect the change and the expectation for the 2024.
All right, so on that note, we call it a wrap on today's edition. Thank you for always being part of Africa's finest television station, talking about global television. My name remains Anthony Momodu, and I'm urging you to go out there and support people. Support, protect people living with disability. That's the best way you can allow and help them contribute their own quota towards making Nigeria truly great again.